Welcome to The Kingdom, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics in a land defended by Sir Ross's Knights. Now here's your host, Rocco Jeppy.
Hello again, Knights Nation. Rocco Jeppy here for The Kingdom podcast. It has been too long. We apologize for the time between episodes, but we are glad to have you back here for episode number 22. And thanks again. I mean, we couldn't do and wouldn't be able to do this without you. We had winter break, and then we had a few challenges in the way, but we are back on the air, and I'm glad you're listening in on us because we have got a lot to discuss. Mainly on this episode today, we will be talking CCBC Essex women's basketball as they have been on a tear since and before winter break. We'll jump right in and talk about these young ladies and all that's going on. The Title IX Classic, a big high school and junior college tournament in Washington, D.C. The Knights participated in that December 27th through the 29th and won 3 consecutive games to take that title. And not only did they win those games, but they won them by an average margin of victory of 27 points. Mya Moye, no surprise here. She had a big 3 games in 3 days. She was named the tournament's most valuable player, averaging 22.3 points per game, including shooting 38.3% from the field and 36.4% from behind the arc. She hit 82% of her free throws, and, she also peppered in 3.7 rebounds a game, 6.7 assists, and 4 steals into that tournament. The Knights overall now have hit a 12-game winning streak as we fast forward to the last 2 weeks, and what a 2 weeks it has been. Wednesday, February 5th, the Knights picked up their 12th victory in a row against conference opponent Garrett College. In that game, for head coach Mike Seney, it was the 94th straight time he has defeated a Maryland Juco opponent. That number keeps getting larger, it seems, by the minute. Their next game is Saturday, the 8th, against Anne Arundel. That's on the road, so it'll be another opportunity to push that number north. Prior to that game on Wednesday, January 29th, a big day, not only in the history of CCBC Essex women's basketball, but a big day in the history of NJCAA women's basketball. Mya Moye went off big time in that game. Going into that game, of course, shortly before it, legendary basketball player Kobe Bryant and 8 others passing away in a tragic helicopter crash. And Mya, playing in her first game since that tragedy, wanted to do something special, and she ended up scoring 81 points. She has garnered all sorts of national news, from SportsCenter to the Baltimore Sun here locally, the Avenue News, you name it. She has been in or around it, and rightfully so, because she set the all-time single game scoring record for NJCAA women's basketball across all divisions 1, 2, and 3. Nobody has ever scored more points in a game, and nobody has ever hit more field goals in a game, as she went 32 for 56, including 11 of 18 from three-point land. She also had 9 rebounds, 7 assists, and 6 steals in that game. And, the coaching staff, her teammates, everybody couldn't be more proud of her. And it actually, as you'll hear in some of our interviews here later on, actually became a goal in and around halftime, because in that same game, others were also looking to hit some marks. Kasey Gagan, unfortunately overshadowed in that game. She finished with her first career quadruple-double on 12 points, 11 rebounds, 15 assists, and 15 steals. In addition to that, Daisha Reed, a double-double in the game, and that was her second double-double of the season, as she continues to see more minutes coming off an injury before winter break. So right now, on that notion, we're going to get to an interview that I had with Mya Moye regarding her 81-point performance, and we'll be back after this interview. Rocco Jeppy here with Essex Knights sophomore guard Mya Moye. Mya, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about some obvious things. I mean, you can't, drop 81 points and not expect to get some questions about it. So regarding that game against Northern Virginia, take me through kind of the pregame. Like, what was your mindset? What was your goal going into that game?
Well, going into that game, we knew we was already better than this team, but we really wanted to, after the loss of Kobe, we just wanted to, just put it all on the court and just leave it all out there.
So you get into halftime. You're sitting at 31 points. In addition to what ended up being a spectacular record-breaking night for you, take me through some of the halftime discussion, because I've talked to some of the girls on the team, and I'm led to believe that there were goals being set for you, for Kasey, and for Reed. Take me through that halftime discussion. Take me through, what you guys were going over.
Well, at halftime, we were winning by a lot, but we wasn't winning how we were supposed to be winning. It wasn't to perfection. So Coach just basically gave us a goals to reach. My goal was to only reach 50 to 60 points, because I had 30 at halftime, but I ended up getting 81, and he just wanted Daisha to go out there and get every board and finish it if anyone else missed, and Kasey just to do what she do any other game.
All right, there you have my interview with Mya Moye. And, as excited as she was about scoring those 81 points, the one thing that continues to impress me about Mya and a lot of the young ladies on this team is how team-oriented they are. Right now, we are up against a break. We're going to hit a commercial and be back in just a minute. When we return, we're going to get to my interview with Kasey Gagan. You're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Let's talk about college.
Times have changed.
We've changed.
I refuse to accept an education that comes with a mountain of crippling debt.
I will not confuse a fancy name with a quality education.
Let's talk practical.
Let's talk flexible.
Let's talk smart education.
For all the practical thinkers, the achievers, the can't wait to get started types out there, your community college is waiting. Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online at ccbcmd.edu and see what you can be.
And we are back. Special thanks, of course, to CCBC for that information. Don't forget, visit ccbcmd.edu for more information. All right, now we are going to continue to talk about our women's basketball squad, getting ready to get to our next interview. The Knights are currently 23-2 overall. They are ranked number 13 in the nation. And in addition to that, in the conference, 8-0, a perfect record in conference this season. The next game, as we said earlier, coming up Saturday on the road, the 8th, against Anne Arundel Community College. And right now we're going to get to our next interview. This is Kasey Gagan discussing her quadruple-double, Mya's 81 points, and a little bit more. We'll be back after this interview. Rocco Jeppy here now with sophomore guard Kasey Gagan. Kasey, we'll start with, just because we finished talking with Mya a little while ago. Talk about that game against Northern Virginia. Big game for her. We'll start there, and then we'll get into some more obvious questions with you. But at what point were, she's so modest, so trying to get an answer out of her when certain things are very difficult. At halftime, I heard from some of the other girls that they started having some additional goals. What was going on in that locker room at halftime?
Basically, we were looking at the stat sheet, and the coaches had came up with goals for most of us because we were already basically there. So it was to get her the 81, it was to get me the quadruple-double, it was to get Daisha a double-double, Ray a double-double, and kind of everybody just agreed, we can do it, we can make all these goals, we can set all these records tonight.
I asked Mya about Daisha, and of course you brought up Ray as well. Daisha's starting to play some more minutes.
Yep.
She's starting to get her, feet underneath of her. And then, of course, you have Ray who, sometimes she'll start, sometimes she'll come off the bench. guys are already playing so well. To have those two, starting to get into a rhythm, that's got to be exciting.
Yeah, they're definitely finding themselves. Daisha's getting her confidence back because, she's coming off of surgery. She wasn't really, she didn't know whether or not she was ready. We knew she was ready, but it was just, she's finding herself finally now, and Rhea is finding herself as well. She's bringing down a lot of boards for us and contributing a lot of extra points that's helping us.
All right, we are back, and that was my interview with Kasey Gagan. Great sit-down interview. Kasey has a good head on her shoulders when it comes to not only the game, but the strategy of the game and everything in and around it. So it was really fun sitting down to talk to her, and we'll look forward to more from her as this season progresses, looking just kind of catching everybody up on the schedule in between what we've already talked about in the Knights Title IX Classic Tournament victory over winter break. And the last two games against Garrett and Northern Virginia. Sandwiched in there, the Knights took on Montgomery, Cecil, and CCBC Catonsville. Of course, taking those games, as we mentioned earlier, they're on a 12-game win streak. The closest one of those games coming against CCBC Catonsville, but that was still a 121 to 77 victory. And that's kind of been the MO of the Knights lately. Over their last 12 games, their closest games coming against Chesapeake in a 94 to 70 win, and against Frederick in a 79 to 63 win. Otherwise, they are just absolutely blowing opponents out. They've had 5 straight games scoring 100 or more. In their last two, 133 to 41 over Garrett and 139 to 40 over Northern Virginia. So the offense is really clicking, and that was especially on display last night against Garrett College. So we're going to get to some more interviews here. As again, we said we are going to be focusing on Essex women's basketball, and that's just what we're doing. After last night's game, our very own Aaron Thomas sat down with Mya Moye and talked to her about the Garrett game, as well as her 81-point performance. And immediately following that interview will be his post-game interview with Kasey Gagan, talking again about that Garrett game and her quadruple double. You're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics. We'll be back after those two interviews.
All right, Aaron Thomas standing here with Mya Moye. Big game here out today, a big win for the team. Anything in particular that stood out to you in this game?
What stood out to me in this game is that everyone contributed. Everybody always contributed, but it was fun today. It was a lot of excitement, a lot of things we didn't see none of my teammates never do. They did today, and that was very exciting knowing that we're going into big games and we seeing a lot of growth.
I think one of those moves that you're talking about, it had to be that behind the back that Gagan pulled out earlier. That was pretty impressive. You think that's going to find its way onto YouTube at some point?
Yes.
All right, got to address the elephant in the room, the big 81-point game that you dropped in your first game after the tragic passing of Kobe. We found out afterwards Kobe Bryant's a big inspiration to you, as he is to so many out there. What's it been like for you after that game? Because I've seen, you get your name in the paper, you get your name out there in the internet. What's that been like for you? Because you seem kind of reserved. It's kind of be a little bit of a shock, a little bit.
No, I just want to keep working and keep getting my name out there more and more and make people recognize what we got over here, which is talent.
Well, I think that's the best way to say it, and I think that's very Kobe-esque of you, too. I think that's pretty much how he would say it as well. Congratulations on the big game against Nova and the big game here against the Lakers. So we'll see you next time, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, Aaron Thomas here once again, talking to Kasey Gagan, making a habit of this, talking to you after the game because you're putting up a lot of stats every game. Got to talk to you about that behind-the-back move. You been practicing that?
No.
Oh, man, I don't know if I believe that you haven't been practicing that.
No,
You seem pretty effortless.
Thank you.
No. Now, you had the quadruple-double in the last game. You joined the Admiral with in the quadruple-double club. Is that something you ever done? Did you do that before in high school?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not a quadruple double.
Yeah, well, is there anything rolling for you in particular? Because it seemed like you really are hitting your stride here at this point, and it's a perfect time to hit your stride as we're getting close to the end of the season and getting close to when these games really start mattering.
I mean, they've been on me all season about my assists. I think I've been picking my assist-to-turnover ratio up and my steals as well.
15 steals in the game against Nova, so steals are definitely coming up. Hard to do that again, though. Steals were a little bit down today, but still a great effort.
Thank you.
Now, I've been told to ask you about your socks. What's so special about those?
Coach Mike's friend, he has his own clothing brand, so we wore them today to represent.
All right, and what's the name of that clothing brand? Or who owns the clothing brand? We'll go with that.
Meek.
All right, shout out to Meek, and let's show those socks off. Not nearly as nice as mine. All right, we're going to talk to Kendal Haggerty here in a moment. Congratulations, Gagan, on the quadruple double and another big game here against the Lakers. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
So there you had Aaron Thomas talking post-game on Wednesday, February 5th with Mya Moye and Kasey Gagan. He also spoke with Kendal Haggerty and head coach Mike Seney. We do, however, have to hit a break, and when we come back on the other side of that break, we will listen to that interview with Kendal Haggerty and head coach Mike Seney. We thank you again for listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed, and I refuse to accept an education that comes with a mountain of crippling debt. Because paying off student loans for the next 30 years is not in my financial plans.
For all the practical thinkers, the achievers, the can't wait to get started types out there, your community college is waiting. Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online at CCBCMD.edu and see what you can be.
Thank you for checking back in on the other side of that commercial break. Brought to you by CCBCMD.edu. Make sure you check that out. And we're getting ready to go to some more post-game interviews. This was after the win against Garrett, 133-41 on Wednesday, February 5th. You're going to hear interviews with freshman Kendal Haggerty and head coach Mike Seney, and we'll be back on the other side of those interviews here on the Kingdom Podcast.
And I'm here with Kendal Haggerty. We're wrapping up the players' interviews here. You started out really hot from the field. I think you were 5 from 8 for 3 in the first half. Slowed down there in the second half, but you were kind of carrying the offense in the first half. Was that kind of just by accident, or were the shots just going down, or did they make an effort to get you involved early on in the offense?
Yeah, well, my shots were falling, and once it started to fall, everyone started to look for me more.
Yeah, it seemed like they were looking to get you involved as the shot was falling down. But when the shot wasn't falling in the second half, you were getting involved in other places. On one, I could be wrong, I'm not a mathematician, but on one play down there, I think I counted 4 offensive rebounds on one possession. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Does that stand out? Have you ever done that before?
Maybe a couple times, but not really.
Not since high school?
No.
Well, it seems like you guys as a team, you guys are playing your best basketball right now. Perfect time to be playing your best basketball as these games are going to really start to matter heading into tournament time. You think you guys are playing your best basketball as a team?
Yeah, we still have a lot to work on going into more intense games later on, but yeah.
In particular, what do you think you guys could work on as a team?
Defensively, we need to keep continuing to close out because a lot of girls can shoot. So as long as we stay above the three-point line, we'll be fine.
Well, I think if you can do that like you were doing it today, I think you guys are going to be a tough team to beat moving forward because your closeout game was strong today. Yeah. Thanks for talking to us, Kendal, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, thank you.
My guy.
All right, my guy, Coach Mike here, the only man. Well, maybe not the only man, but he's definitely dressed better than me. Coach Mike, first game here back in a while, and the first game back since Moye dropped that 81 points. I got to ask you right away, what did that mean to you? I know talking to you, you're a big Kobe fan, so that had to be a little special for you as a coach.
It was. I mean, I still kind of don't believe it happened. We just didn't plan for it. It was just it just happened. She just couldn't miss. She had 11 threes that night. It was special. You could just tell something special was going on. And to do it, in honor of a guy that great. He's one of the best basketball players to ever live. I'm not going to just say he's the best basketball player just because he passed on, but he's definitely one of the best basketball players to ever live, and he had a huge impact on, everyone, not just the men's side, the women's side as well. You could kind of tell, with his daughter and sitting front row with the WNBA logo, you could kind of tell, he was kind of being an ambassador for the women's game as well. So to lose him that young and that tragic, it was tough. But
well, I know that I said to Rocco here, the cameraman, after this passing, I said, if you're a betting man, don't bet on the Lakers this year. Don't bet against the Lakers, and don't bet against the Knights as well, because I know how much Kobe meant to you and the rest of this team. Back on to today's game, got to ask, I saw you had somebody filming from the sideline. He got that Gagan behind the back move, right? Because that's got to find its way on YouTube later today.
I sincerely hope so. Kasey has been amazing. Mya's been getting a lot of press over the past week, but Kasey Gagan has been amazing. I don't know if you got a chance to kind of see what she's been doing.
She joined the Admiral in the quadruple-double club. I had to give her props for that.
And she had another triple-double tonight. I mean, she's been amazing. I hope he did get some footage of that. But I know you did it on the call. I know you did it justice.
Oh, thank you very much for that. And I said it to all the players that we talked to before. If you look at the box score and if you watch the games, it really does seem like you guys are hitting your stride just offensively and defensively, starting to maybe play your best basketball headed into a time where these games are really, really starting to matter. Yeah. Is there one thing in particular, though, you think you guys can improve on again? Some of your players talked about the closeouts on defense, maybe rebounding, because you guys are strong on the offensive board here, but today. But you had a mismatch on that.
Yeah.
Other games may not have that mismatch.
Just keeping up the same energy and attitude that we have on the offensive side, on the defensive side. I think we really, really love to score the ball, which I love, of course. But I blame myself as well and the coaching staff. Like, we have to get them, the same psych we are on offense, on defense, and that's something we're going to continue to work on. The little things, so like you said, closing out and, running hard and being proactive and not reactive, So we keep working on that. We should be fine.
All right, well, we got a couple more games to close out this regular season. I know I'm excited for them, and I think you are as well.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for your time, Coach, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right, so we are back live, and special thanks again to Mya Moye, Kasey Gagan, Kendal Haggerty, and head coach Mike Seney. I'm going to work backwards on these interviews, and Aaron talking to head coach Mike Seney in that postgame of the Garrett victory. Of course, he picked up his 94th consecutive win against a Maryland Juco opponent. He talked about Mya's 81 points and how special that was. Not only special because of Mya's love for Kobe Bryant and how she has patterned her work ethic after him, but also head coach Mike Seney, very big and very much a Kobe fan growing up and even as an adult. And he found it very special, that moment at Northern Virginia, that she was able to hang 81 points. And it was a special moment as well because, as Coach Seney said, Kobe had really come an ambassador for women's sports and of course, basketball in particular. But, when the women's national soccer team was playing, Kobe would be present, and he was present at a lot of other female athletic competitions. And so really cool to see Mya score 81 points. And of course, they talked about, Kasey as well, and how, again, that quadruple double, seemingly overshadowed in that game. But she came right back her next game against Garrett and followed that quad up with a triple double. So she continues to keep her foot on the accelerator. And as we also heard from Coach Seney talking about, he wants to keep the intensity up with the team going forward. However, they do have areas they can improve upon. He wants to improve the defense, and he talked about, it's not just the student-athletes improving the defense. It's also a bit of a responsibility on the coaching staff as well to get them not only in the right frame of mind, but get them in the right positioning and challenging them, getting their confidence where it needs to be so that they can play the kind of defense that they'll need to be playing as the regional tournament and as we hope the national tournament begins to unfold. So that's what they're looking forward to. Listening to Kendal, always a good interview, and her three-point shooting, was on point against Garrett. She was at 20 points for the game, 7 of 17 overall, and she hit 5 of 11 three-point attempts, finishing with 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. The freshman from Urbana High School. Kasey, what can you say about Kasey and Mya in their interviews? always so modest and team-focused, oriented around improving the team at all times. You heard Kasey talking about, she's coming off of a triple-double and a quadruple-double in her last 2 games, and still she wants to improve upon, talking about getting better with her assist-to-turnover ratio. Mya always talking about the team first and forward-thinking. The two of them, very good games against Garrett. Mya, 33 points. Kasey, 28 points. And just really, shooting the heck out of the ball. I mean, the Knights in that game against Garrett, they finished 51 of 100 for 51%. The Knights made as many shots in the game as Garrett attempting just 51 shots and hitting only 15 of those. And the three-pointers, I mean, they were raining 46% from behind the arc, and as they went 23 of 50. Just a big-time shooting team. You'll hear Aaron talk to Coach Seney and mention the name Mike D'Antoni all the time, and that is what's been on display for this team as of late. So very, very proud of that team, and looking forward to what's coming up and what is coming up after the game on Saturday, February 8th, a big game against Lackawanna College. Lackawanna, a Final Four participant last year in the NJCAA Division II Women's Basketball Championships. So that is going to be a big game. We are encouraging all of our students, faculty, and staff to get out to that game. That's going to be on Wednesday, February 19th, right here in the Kingdom at the Wellness and Athletic Center, 6 p.m. tip-off time. We encourage you to please get out here and support your Knights. Come on out Wednesday, February 19th against Lackawanna College, 6 p.m. tip-off time. This is Rocco Jeppy for the Kingdom Podcast. We'll be right back to wrap things up, and we thank you for listening.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed, and I say no to an education at the cost of crippling debt, because paying off student loans for the next 30 years is not in my financial plans.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
All right, folks, we are back, and that is our last commercial break. We thank you for hanging in there, and we have to do those. We gotta take up some airtime. We gotta give props to those that are taking care of us. CCBC, CCBCMD.edu. Make sure you check it out, and there's still time for some late start classes. So get on that website and check it out. Joining me right now to finish off our discussion today about CCBC Essex women's basketball is a sophomore pitcher from the baseball team, Ronnie Jones. Ronnie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's long awaited.
So we got Ronnie on here today because on Wednesday the 5th of February at the Garrett game, the baseball team was out and front and not quite centered, but they were in the bleachers in full force, cheering on your Knights and doing a really good job of it as well. Ronnie, just talk to me about, why you think that, the baseball team should come out and support the other teams on campus.
Well, I think it's good, just like for other athletes to know that like we have each other's back, and also we want to like kind of create that force that like when teams come and play us, that like they have the baseball team in the stands, like they're going to give us a hard time, and I think it just kind of gives us that competitive edge when they know that we're behind them, and no matter what they do, win or lose, we're always going to be there for them.
Now, for the most part, you guys behaved yourself in the stands, which we appreciate because the less paperwork we have to do, the better. But for those of you that don't know, Ronnie has the nickname the Prince of Shenanigans, and you'll learn more about that once the baseball season starts and we start doing some post-game interviews. But, Ron, tell us about, what the mood was and what the MO was, so to speak, of the baseball team in the stands last night.
We were goofy. Everything they did, we were electric for it. So we love going out and support them. They're insane at what they do. Every day in and out at practice, we watch them practice their craft. We actually scrimmaged them earlier on in the fall because we thought we could beat them, and we got smoked. So just them coming out and seeing how good they are, we have to show our support by just, giving them the best energy you can. That's usually us, just being goofy, being those guys that just make the game worth going to and worth watching.
All right. Well, we appreciate that, Ron, and we look forward to having you guys back. The next home game, it's a big one against Lackawanna on February 19th, tip-off at 6 p.m. Lackawanna, one of the 4 teams remaining in the national championship for Division II last season. So we got to get a lot of you out here and come out and join the baseball team and our other teams cheering on the CCBC Essex women's basketball team. And Ron, thanks again for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This will not be my last time on here. I can promise you that.
No, unfortunately, it will not be. For those of you at home or in your office listening, we thank you again. We love the Knights Nation. Without you guys, we couldn't do the things that we do, and you gals as well. We appreciate it. We're going to sign off. This is Rocco Jeppy for Ronnie Jones, the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics. We hope you tune in next time. So long.